This is a testimony video on victory over death. And this is a real testimony that happened in 2020 about a particular thing that's going on in our world. And it was someone who was pronounced dead in the hospital. And not knowing that, I called the cousin of that gentleman the next day and prayed, and God brought him back to life, and he's out of the hospital and back with his family, and that was in 2020. So this was a rad testimony because I didn't know that happened. She actually tracked me down and begged my old job to give. Okay, so here's some of the things that I know. We have to operate under authority. I can't insert myself in someone's life, and I also, I was working at a job. And I asked my boss, when things shut down in 2020, I asked my boss, can I, we had some extra time, right? So can I call our customers and see if they need prayer for anything? And he said, sure. And so I would, was going through like hundreds of customers, and I would just go through and I would just ask. And most people didn't answer their phone. I would just leave messages like praying for them and whatever. And then some people did, and I just asked if they needed prayer for anything, and some people were open. But I just was going down my list, and sometimes we don't even know when we're being prompted by the Lord, but I was doing that one day, and this woman answered. I didn't remember. When she tracked me down months later, I did not remember, because at the same time that was happening, there was another testimony I'm going to share about cancer in another video, but at the same time, a church that I had done some convalescent ministry with, that is like 2 hours from here, but I really wanted to do convalescent. I had gone sometimes by myself, just with my guitar but I really wanted to do it with a group and kind of under that pastor stuff. So I was looking for anywhere that did that. And so I would go with this church up there that God had led me to, that was doing a church plant kind of close to me. And so, but when things shut down, they asked, they reached out to all of those who had done, convalescent ministry and said, do you want to pray? Would you be part of our prayer team? So I had like 100 names on that list. And so I had this, and that was like in my spare time. That wasn't, during work, but this other group. So I was doing this and I speak blessing, and I would pray over the answer machines and just take everyone it wasn't like a list that I was getting through. So I really wanted to honor everyone that I was calling and hear from the Lord. Because honestly, if I'm just praying out of some kind of formula or just kind of checked out, God's not in that. I need to hear from my Father to know how to minister to people. If somebody answers the phone, or even if I'm leaving a message, there's specific things, a word in season. So God wants us to have those words for that particular individual so that he can minister and love people specifically. So, and he's the only one that knows everyone's heart. So this one, I called this woman, and she answered the phone, obviously, and said, is there anything that I can pray for? And she said, yeah, and I don't remember exactly. It was like, my cousin is in the hospital with this issue, and I didn't know that much about it. I really was keeping my ears from any fear and from craziness. God had given me very specific revelation. Actually, it was a little bit after that it began to be more specific and clear of how he wanted me to serve him in that, in some of the opportunities that have arisen because of this season, and how to position myself in faith and not serving a spirit of fear, manipulation, and control, and just honoring him, and submitting to all men, but not obeying, but walking in my integrity, because he walks in his integrity, fears the Lord. So having to honor him first above all men, and then having a humble heart that's submitted to everyone, but can obey everything. Because I have to walk according to my own integrity to keep myself in the love of God and the fear of God. So in this specific testimony, so she says, yeah, my cousin is in the hospital, and he has this really bad issue, and please pray for him. And I don't remember her saying anything else. And so this is where, you work with the revelation and kind of understanding. So I know when in that atmosphere with what was going on last year, I mean, it was like death coming out of people's mouths with fear of death, spirits of fear. This atmosphere is horrible. So I think, I don't know. I mean, I gave God my mouth and I just spoke stuff, but it was like, I just take authority over stuff. Like I take authority over the spirit of death that's talking to him. I command that to leave. I command all fear to get away from him. I cancel all negative words that have been spoken over his life. I speak life over him. I don't know, like I spoke about his lungs, I don't know, like whatever God spoke, but there are things that I have in my tool belt and things that I understand about certain environments that would bring a hindrance to what God would want to speak. No human being has a right to divine someone's future. God alone has the right to do that. And we need to recognize that there is a power that's released through our words. Power of God, power of the enemy. And so, but we have authority because the death and life is in the power of the tongue. So death is trumped by life. But we need to recognize when it's possible there's a spirit of death in operation, because that will block the healing of God if we're not coming over that with the life. Okay, so whatever, I spoke, didn't think anything of it. I'm just keep going down my list. And I didn't remember that I didn't remember any details that she shared about it. So she tracks me down months later. I'm not working at the job anymore. She's like, I don't know if you remember me. And I'm like, actually, I don't. Sorry. I was calling a bunch of people. And she's like, well, you called me. I actually had to beg them for your number because you were not working in there anymore. But I had to talk to you because I need to tell you what happened. So this is what happened. She said, you didn't know this, but the day before you called me, so you prayed for my cousin, and this is what was happening. So the day before you called me, the doctor told his mom, there's nothing more we can do. We recommend that you unplug him because he's pretty much dead. And his mom kept him, did not honor the doctor's word. She kept her son alive. The very next day, God had me call this woman, and it was her cousin that was in the hospital. And she said, after we talked, he came back to life. He is out of the hospital and he's back home with his family. And we just want to thank you because he has little kids and he has a family. And I was like, wow, that's amazing. And let me tell you what happened. Let me tell you why that happened. And I said, let me ask you a question. Is his mom a praying mom and a believer? And she said, absolutely. I said, here's why that happened. Because that woman received God's report above the doctor's report. But God knew who. Sometimes we're in the midst of this atmosphere of unbelief. When Jesus himself was in the midst, he's like, get them all out of here. Get them all out of here so I can minister and raise this woman from the dead. Get them all out of here. Everybody get out of here. He had to get that spiritual atmosphere out of the way so he could actually be in the faith with the Father to get this thing done. So we have to acknowledge what's going on. So God sent me, and I'm like, I'm like, I have no fear of that thing. Like, let's come against it in Jesus' name. And so God sent me to come in because, his mom was battling, I'm sure. Like, this is my son. Like, and God needed someone who was completely out of the atmosphere. But see, he was honoring that woman's faith for her son. And so I said that to her. So you need to know, and your family all needs to know, God did that because of that man's mom. And so, but it was an amazing, amazing testimony of what I saw God do. I'd never seen something at that level of like raising from the dead. I've heard stories about that, but I said, can you put a picture of your family on my Facebook page? I'm never on my Facebook page, barely at all. Sometimes I get on there and listen to like little teachings and stuff just specifically for a couple minutes. But anyway, I think that's it for that. So that was a wild, amazing testimony. There's 10 minutes around. Let that go. All right. God bless you. Be encouraged. Be strengthened in faith. We overcome together by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony. So we get to take I take the testimonies. I'm like, Father, I want you to do that with me. I want you to do that with me. Show me. Bring me. Put me in those situations. I want to grow up with you like that. I want to do that. So I take those things that I hear other people's testimonies, and I'm like, that's for me, Father. I want to grow in that. I want to do that. And so we grow together. Things that God has done in me and things that God's released in me are for the body. And same with you. Like, we need each other in this thing. It's not like I'm not some superhero. Like, nobody's like somehow exalted. It's just like we grow up together. We grow up together, and some of us have a little more like, whatever. Why? Whatever. I just was part of a ministry that really was walked in that. And so God grew me under that authority. And then he trained me in that for years so that then more of the body can increase, right? This is how we do this thing together. I love that. Okay, that's it for that one. More to come.